Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is doing some good things. Maybe. What's happening here? All right, so there's been a couple of policies, and actually not just policy, but another topic that I'm actually going to fold into a different story that I'll just mention briefly here. He is open to arresting Netanyahu, and not just open to. It sounds like that the government would indeed arrest him due to the recent ICC arrest warrant if Netanyahu were to enter Canada. So good on that front, and also good on some other stuff that's going on. So today, this was announced. This is the school food program. Now, I believe I did a video on this before because this was announced earlier as part of a larger $1 billion in funding over 5 years for National School Food Program that would deliver meals to 400,000 more children. This one, though, is specific to Ontario, where they have reached a deal with the Ontario government. The Ontario government, which is a conservative government run by Doug Ford. Doug Ford is indeed on board with it. He told reporters that he was all in on the federal plan to provide meals to students, confirming the province was in talks, and said we're in the midst of discussions right now. I think it's so helpful for kids to have a little meal in them. It makes them think better during the day. You're not going to hear me give credit to Doug Ford very often, but good here to see that he was willing to work together with Trudeau on this to indeed guarantee school meals. Canada is one of the only major countries, major democracies, to not have free school meals for kids. So this is a very welcome program. This is in addition to $10 a day childcare that the Trudeau government recently, as they've been in power, implemented province by province as they met with various governments for various agreements. And that has benefited my life personally. I have benefited from more affordable childcare. Like my bills went down directly as a result of that. So this is a continuation, of that sort of approach here, where these are programs that the vast majority of people are going to benefit from, assuming, of course, you have kids. But this isn't only beneficial in terms of, the bottom line and saving money, but also time. The amount of time it takes to put together, think about what your kid's going to eat, if they're even going to eat it, and put together that lunch. By having all kids essentially eat, similar, the same meal at school, there isn't this sort of it eliminates this sort of peer pressure or this hierarchy among students that I remember going back to school, where different kids had different meals, and there are all these discussions about oh, what did you get for lunch today? It's just, it eliminates all that, puts everyone on a level playing field. Every kid is guaranteed a meal. No worry about kids going hungry or kids looked, get made fun of because they couldn't afford a meal that day or something. It's wonderful on so many levels. So it's great to see this sort of thing get implemented, as well as this is also new. And I got to say, welcomed for one reason in particular. I'll get to that in a second. But the Trudeau government to send, the checks is one thing, but also slash GST on some goods, slashing sales tax on various things, including prepared foods. So to be clear, this is for a couple of months starting December 14th to February 15th. So on goods including prepared foods, vegetable trays, pre-made meals, salads, and sandwiches, which essentially means all food in Canada is going to be essentially tax-free. Restaurant meals, whether dine-in, takeout, or delivery, snacks including chips, candy, and granola bars, beer, wine, cider, and pre-mixed alcoholic beverages below 7% alcohol by volume, children's clothing and footwear, which again, I will personally benefit from, car seats and diapers, children's toys such as board games, dolls, and video game consoles. Yes, children's toys. Of course. My 3-year-old has been asking for a PlayStation 5 Pro. He's looking for higher fidelity in God of War Ragnarok, so I will ensure that he gets that for Christmas. But good to see. I'll be saving some money there, as well as books, print newspapers, puzzles for all ages, Christmas trees. I gotta say, this is good stuff. When it comes to the kind of tax that impacts everyday people the most, It's sales tax. Because sales tax to somebody who's, worth several millions of dollars is the same as somebody who made 12 grand last year. That tax on whatever that item is going to be the same to both those people. So, of course, that disproportionately impacts people who are lower income. This is a brilliant move. And this will actually go on to over a 2-month period. If a family spends $2,000 in eligible goods in that 2-month period, they can expect to save about $100, but it's actually going to go up for provinces that have HST, like in Ontario. That same $2,000 will result in an estimated savings of $260 over a 2-month period. And Jagmeet Singh is also going to be on board with this, so it sounds like this is going to go through. He said he would permanently eliminate the GST on essentials such as grocery store meals and snacks, internet and cell phone bills, diapers and children's clothing, and home heating. So, of course, he would go further. Also worth noting that this would deprive the government of $5 billion in tax revenues each year, the NDP estimates, and would be offset by revenues from a proposed tax on excessive corporate profits. This is how you do it. You save people, lower income people, money by cutting things such as sales tax while increasing corporate tax. Not to mention, you could also throw in there a billionaire tax or something similar, but ensuring that there is more of a level playing field. We all know things are more expensive. Yes, inflation has gone down. Regardless, massive corporations have taken a greedflation into, their books. That has been continued even despite inflation going down. Corporations have been still increasing their prices as a way to, again, benefit themselves, as they always do. If there's an opportunity for capitalism, for these capitalists to take advantage, they're going to take that advantage. So they were using inflation as a guise to, in fact, make larger corporate profits, which is why, any sort of blame on any kind of government that was giving people help during the pandemic and saying, oh, inflation was because the people were getting help from the government. First of all, people needed that help. Second of all, if that's the case, then why were corporate profits at an all-time high while inflation was up? Because they were clearly taking advantage of the situation. So this is the proper way to offset any sort of lost revenue that may impact, public programs. Now, on the other side of that, we have Pierre Poilievre, who is not a fan of this move by the Liberals and the NDP. Here's what he has to say.
Jagmeet Singh has sold out Canadians to sign on with Trudeau again. And today what we have is a 2-month temporary tax trick that will not make up for the permanent quadrupling carbon tax on heat, housing, food, and fuel, and all to save Justin's job and Jagmeet's pension. Ironically,
I just got to pause. This guy talking about anyone else's pension, the only job Pierre Poilievre has ever had has been a member of parliament. This guy joined parliament when he was in his early 20s. This is the only job he's ever had. Yet he complains about career politicians. It's one of the greatest cons that I've witnessed in Canadian politics in some time. This man that, hangs out with corporate lobbyists while claiming that he's for the working class, complains about career politicians while he's only ever worked a politician's job. It's so disgusting to watch. And to see him, even on this issue, where people are actually going to be saving money, claiming it's some ploy. Everything a politician does, you could argue, is to benefit them. Of course. This obvious. And of course, does any time any government does something that people are going to like, if your reaction to that is, oh, they're just doing it to make people like them. Okay. That means it's a good policy. Like that isn't that kind of the point? Is to help people? It's like, what is your argument here? He can't. What's funny is if he came out and said, you know what, I agree with this. This makes sense. People are going to save money. I'm on board. I actually think he would grow in support because people might actually begin seeing him as more than just a fraud and think, hey, okay, he's willing to admit here, even though this is Trudeau doing this, that this is a good thing to do, that maybe I can actually trust this guy now. But he's not, even on this issue. Just complete phony. But anyways, if there's more here, let me continue.
In just a few months, Trudeau and the NDP plan to raise taxes on all the same items they claim they're giving you a break on, directly through the carbon tax. They'll be raising taxes on heat, on gas.
How? Oh my God, I could spend all day pausing this video. How are they directly raising prices on these things through a carbon tax? That inherently means it's not directly, because you're claiming the carbon tax is costing people more money, when the fact is there's been various analyses on this. Carbon pricing is not to blame for Canada's affordability challenges. In fact, people get rebates, tax rebates on this stuff. The federal government rebates roughly 90% of the revenue raised in lump sum payments. So this essentially is in every province minus BC, Quebec, and Northwest Territories. They have their own carbon tax system. But in all other ones, people are rebated. So, and all you have to do is file your tax return. Most families receive more in rebates than they pay in carbon taxes. Let me read that again. Most families receive more in rebates than they pay in carbon tax. Using Stats Canada's latest data, we estimate that the median annual net cost of carbon tax for households in Ontario in 2023 was negative, around minus $300, meaning that most households received $300 more in rebates than they paid in carbon tax. But this has been Pierre Poilievre's entire thing. His entire identity over this past couple of years has been the carbon tax destroying lives. But he'll never actually discuss the underlying numbers and who's actually taking advantage of people through, for example, price gouging by massive corporations. Because his entire career has been spent propping up massive corporations to the detriment of the working class. This guy never in his life has signed on to a pro-union bill. He's always been anti-union, anti-worker. Yet now he's trying to claim he cares about the working class. It's such a farce, but people fall for this garbage. Anyways, that's to say, Trudeau's doing some things. Now, I'm the last time I voted Liberal, I actually don't even remember. It's probably been like, I don't know, 10 years. But if this continues, I don't know. For me, the way I look at voting, the way you have to look at it, like my view on this has evolved over time. Clearly, I used to read, I was once a Green Party candidate, so my views have had to evolve in the way voting operates. But essentially, you should vote for whatever makes sense in your riding. So, if, for example, the Liberals have no shot, and it's always the Conservatives or the NDP, and that's who tends to win your riding. I would hope, again, if you know anything about anything, you want to avoid a Conservative victory in any way possible. You'd vote for the NDP. Same thing, if you're in a riding where the NDP or the Greens have no shot, and it's going to be Liberal or Conservative, I'd vote for the Liberal in that case. Voting is simply a tool. You're never going to be able to vote for all of your hopes and dreams and, one candidate, one party. There's always going to be things to question, issues with every party. There's lots of issues when it comes to the Liberal Party, lots of failed promises, of course. But again, voting is simply a tool, and you have to view it as a way how to best use your tool in the situation that you are in. If Trudeau keeps doing things like this, I think it's worth reconsidering how we view the party. That said, he should not be the leader. I don't care. Like it's gone on too long where he is so far down in polling. Even if he gets replaced, I got to admit, I think it's very unlikely the way things are going, uh, that liberals are going to form any kind of government. I think it's very likely going to be a conservative majority or a conservative minority, just based on trends, based on how people vote. They tend to vote once they're tired of one party, they go to the other side. And even though we have multiple parties in Canada, people tend to view it as either liberal or conservative. That's how things typically go. The only way to really break out of that is to have the NDP shock, the way they, once did under Jack Layton. I don't think that's possible under Jagmeet Singh. I think Jagmeet Singh should also step down and be replaced. I don't think he's a terrible person. I think he's a nice guy. But in order for that party to grow, I think they need a more forceful voice. I just don't think he's angry enough. I think you need someone who is willing to really be able to command the camera, is more charismatic in a way that Jagmeet Singh I don't think has, despite his other qualities. But in lieu of that, I think we're headed towards a conservative minority or majority. And in a situation like that, I think you want to avoid the worst possible outcome, which is a conservative majority. Keep that in mind as we head towards an election next year where you, if you think things are bad now, things will get a lot worse under a conservative government.